Don't be too polite, girls, don't be too polite. Show a little fight, girls, show a little fight. Don't be fearful of offending in case you get the sack. Just recognise your value and we won't look back.
The Whitlam government passed the Equal Pay for Equal Work Bill in order to afford women greater economic security in the workforce. However, businesses largely ignored this bill and found loopholes in order to continue paying women less. For example, a woman holding the place of senior executive would be demoted to junior executive, but still required to do the same amount of work as she had previously done. By renaming her job, corporations were able to continue to pay her less for doing the same amount of work as her male counterparts.
Well, then with equal work for equal pay, once the education was open, was free, I think it encouraged more women to work, to go to university. So when they came out, they considered themselves equal because their degree was equal, they sat the same qualification papers as a man. So they expected to be paid the same, which is as it should be. But I think it might have been abused because they got round it by saying, yes, you're entitled to, by law, equal pay for equal work, but we won't quite give you the same responsibility. I think it might be got around that way when they talk about this glass ceiling that can only arrive so far. Women.
Whitlam promoted education for both genders, allowing women to take part in skilled professions. One of these women included Julia Gillard, the first female Prime Minister of Australia, whose university education was funded by the Whitlam government. After becoming Prime Minister, she continued the work of Whitlam in promoting women's rights. Later named the misogyny speech, an assertion of the still prevalent acts of sexism and inequalities within the workplace.
Seconds of my speaking time to say to the Leader of the Opposition, I think the best course for him is to reflect on the standards he's exhibited in public life, and the Leader of the Opposition should think seriously about the role of women in public life and in Australian society, because we are entitled to a better standard than this.
During the time of the Whitlam government, the Single Mother's Benefit was established in 1973 as a way to provide financial assistance for the widows who were unable to qualify for the widow's pension. The Family Court of Australia was later introduced to address familial issues regarding the Family Law Act 1975. It provided an informal and accommodating environment for discussing areas such as divorce, property, custody and child support as interpersonal relationships rather than defined morals.
I think up until that point, divorce was legal, but it had to be proven. Show her wounds, beaten, bruised, to go to a hospital or something, and it took years, and it was a very sordid business. People were dragged through very humiliating scenarios, and I don't know how long it would take. It was also expensive.
The abolishment of the contraceptive pill tax permitted women a simpler and economical method for controlling their fertility. During the first week in leadership, the Whitlam government eradicated the Commonwealth sales tax, originally being 27.5% in the first few weeks of release, and made the pill possible through the Pharmaceutical Benefit Scheme.
The government introduced profoundly new ideas, such as the decision of originally funding the Sydney Rape Crisis Centre in 1974. It was aimed to provide emotional and medical support to rape victims. It is currently continuing as a nationwide centre with support such as telephone counselling 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. However, some of Whitlam's ideas were not followed through with, such as the promise of free preschool education for every child under the age of 5, among other things. In 1972, the Women's Electoral Lobby was formed. This lobby had a main focus on women's education and employment, as well as the accessibility of childcare services. In 1973, Elizabeth Reid was appointed the position of advisor to the Prime Minister on Women's Affairs. The Family Law Act was created in 1975, which changed the rights of women in regards of divorce and other family matters, showing just how much Whitlam had done for women's rights in just 3 short years.
Don't be too polite, girls, don't be too polite. Show a little fight, girls, show a